What if the government doesn't hide UFOs, but something far worse that lives among us? In March 2015, Redwood Hill was nothing more than a forgotten dot on the map of Northern California. Population 847. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where the diner closes at 8 p.m., and where nothing ever happens. Until it did. On March 14th, at exactly 11:47 p.m., every electronic device in Redwood Hill simultaneously shut down. Phones, computers, even car engines died mid-drive. The town plunged into absolute darkness. No stars, no moon, just void. Sarah Mitchell, a local journalist working the night shift at the Redwood Gazette, was the first to notice something else. Through her office window, she saw lights moving through the forest. Not flashlights. These were different. Pulsing, geometric patterns that moved with impossible precision, weaving between the ancient redwoods like living organisms. She grabbed her old film camera, the only device still working, and started documenting. Through the lens, she saw figures, dozens of them, moving in synchronized formations toward the old mining facility at the hill's peak, a facility that had been officially abandoned since 1987. But Sarah knew better. For weeks, she'd been investigating reports of trucks entering that facility at night. Government plates, no logos. And the locals who asked questions? They stopped asking. As she focused her camera, one of the figures stopped, turned, and looked directly at her through the window, despite being half a mile away. Her phone suddenly buzzed to life, impossible given the blackout. A single text from an unknown number. Stop looking. Last warning. Sarah's hand trembled as she killed the lights in her office. The footsteps outside stopped. Silence pressed against her ears like water pressure. She crouched beneath the window, film camera clutched to her chest, and waited. Minutes stretched into eternities. Then, through the glass, she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to any human throat, a wet, clicking noise like joints popping underwater. Whatever was outside wasn't checking doors or windows. It was listening. She could feel it listening. When the footsteps finally retreated, Sarah didn't waste time. She had 43 photos on that roll of film. Evidence. She grabbed her jacket and slipped out the back entrance, keeping to the shadows between buildings. The town remained dead. No lights, no movement, no signs of the 847 people who called this place home. No, not vanished. Taken. She reached Old Miller's Photography, the only place in town that still developed film manually. The shop was dark, but she knew where Miller kept the spare key. Inside, she worked by moonlight that had suddenly returned, as if the sky itself had been waiting. As the photos developed in the chemical bath, Sarah's blood went cold. The figures weren't wearing uniforms. They weren't wearing anything. Their skin, it reflected the light wrong, prismatic like oil on water. And their eyes, dozens of eyes, all fixed on points throughout the town, coordinated, hunting. But the final photo showed something else. In the mining facility's entrance, a symbol was carved into the rock face, fresh, still smoking. Sarah had seen it before, in her father's journal, the one he'd kept before he committed suicide 10 years ago, before he'd tried to expose what he'd found working at that same facility. The symbol meant harvest. The shop door creaked open behind her. Sarah spun around, chemicals splashing from the tray. In the doorway stood Marcus Chen, the town's deputy sheriff. His uniform was torn, face covered in dirt and blood, but his eyes were clear, human, terrified. "You're alive," she whispered. Barely. Marcus stumbled inside, locking the door behind him. Sarah, we don't have much time. They're doing a sweep. Anyone still conscious after the pulse, they're hunting us. The pulse? That's what triggered the blackout, some kind of electromagnetic weapon. But it did something else, too. Everyone who was asleep when it hit, they're gone. Not dead, converted. My wife, Sarah. I watched her eyes change, watched her stand up and walk out with the others, like she was being called. She showed him the photos. Marcus's face went white. I know what these are. 3 months ago, Sheriff Davidson received a federal order, complete media blackout. We were told to ignore any reports about the mining facility. Anyone who persisted in asking questions received visits from men in unmarked vehicles. Your friend Tommy Harris, the mechanic who disappeared last month, he didn't leave town. He saw trucks delivering something to the facility, large containers, moving. Moving? He said they pulsed, like they were breathing. Marcus pulled out a flash drive from his vest. Before the pulse hit, I was investigating, found security footage from the facility's perimeter. Sarah, there's something being kept underground, something that's been there since 1952, Project Shepherd. Your father didn't kill himself. He was eliminated because he discovered what they were really mining. Which was? Marcus inserted the drive into an old laptop, one of the few battery-powered devices still functional. Grainy footage appeared. Timestamp March 14th, 2015, 10:33 p.m. The mining facility entrance, and emerging from it, hundreds of figures in white containment suits, carrying what looked like bodies on stretchers. Except the bodies were moving, writhing, changing. They weren't mining minerals, Sarah. They were excavating something else, something that's been there since 1952, Project Shepherd. Your father didn't kill himself. He was eliminated because he discovered what they were really mining. Which was? Marcus inserted the drive into an old laptop, one of the few battery-powered devices still functional. Grainy footage appeared. Timestamp March 14th, 2015, 10:33 p.m. The mining facility entrance, and emerging from it, hundreds of figures in white containment suits, carrying what looked like bodies on stretchers. Except the bodies were moving, writhing, changing. They weren't mining minerals, Sarah. They were excavating something else, something that's been there since 1952, Project Shepherd. Your father didn't kill himself. He was eliminated because he discovered what they were really mining. The basement, Sarah hissed. Miller has a tunnel. Prohibition era leads to the old brewery 2 blocks away. They moved fast, gathering the photos and flash drive. The clicking sounds grew louder, closer. Through the shop windows, Sarah caught glimpses of the converted townspeople. Mrs. Patterson from the library, young Danny Rodriguez, all moving with that same inhuman precision, heads tilted at identical angles, mouths slightly open, breathing in perfect synchronization. The basement door hung crooked on rusted hinges. Marcus went first, flashlight cutting through decades of dust. The tunnels stretched ahead, brick walls weeping moisture. They were halfway through when Marcus stopped. Sarah, the footage. There was something else. The timestamp. The creatures emerged at 10:33 p.m., over an hour before the pulse. They were already awake, already moving. The pulse wasn't meant to wake them up. It was meant to prepare us. Prepare us for what? Integration. He showed her his forearm. Beneath the blood and dirt, something moved under his skin. Dark threads, like roots, spreading from a small puncture wound. When I tried to stop my wife from leaving, one of them touched me, just a brush of fingers. That was 4 hours ago. Sarah, I can feel it, growing, connecting. In another hour, I'll be like them. Sarah's hands shook as she examined the wound. The threads pulsed with bioluminescent light, synchronized with Marcus's heartbeat. We have to get you to a hospital. There are no hospitals left. Marcus's laugh was bitter. This is happening everywhere. I managed to pick up radio chatter before the pulse. Cities going dark up and down the west coast, always starting near old mining sites, old excavation points. Redwood Hill isn't the first, it's just the newest. They reached the brewery's basement. Above them, floorboards creaked under multiple footsteps. The converted anticipated their escape route. They're learning, Marcus said. Every person they convert adds to their collective intelligence. By morning, they'll know everything we know, every memory, every fear, every plan. He pressed the flash drive into Sarah's hand. You need to get this out. There's a ham radio operator, Jerry Sullivan, lives 5 miles outside town on Route 9. If anyone's still human, it's him. He can broadcast this. But Marcus, I'm slowing you down, and we both know it. He handed her his service weapon. There's a drainage pipe behind those old fermentation tanks, leads to the creek. Follow it downstream. And Sarah? His eyes were already beginning to change, pupils dilating into something wider, darker. The basement door exploded inward. Dozens of converted poured through, moving like a single organism. Marcus turned to face them, buying Sarah precious seconds. She ran.
The drainage pipe was narrower than Sarah expected. She crawled through freezing water, knees scraping against corroded metal, the sound of pursuit echoing behind her. Marcus's screams had stopped 3 minutes ago. Now there was only that clicking, that wet synchronization of dozens of throats producing sounds that shouldn't exist. She emerged into the creek bed, gasping. The forest loomed ahead, ancient redwoods creating a canopy so thick that even the returned moonlight barely penetrated. Sarah checked her remaining supplies. The film camera, 23 photos, Marcus's flash drive, and a gun with 6 bullets. 6 bullets against an entire town. Route 9 lay 5 miles northeast. Sarah started running, following the creek's path. But something was wrong with the forest. The trees themselves seemed to pulse with that same bioluminescent glow she'd seen in Marcus's infection. The bark was moving, breathing, and carved into dozens of trunks that same symbol: harvest. How long had these trees been infected? How deep did the contamination go? Her father's journal. Sarah suddenly remembered passages she'd dismissed as paranoid delusions. He'd written about root systems beneath the town, about mycelial networks that predated human civilization, about something he called the first ecology. He'd discovered cave paintings in the mine shaft, images of people with too many eyes, of harvests that weren't crops but humans, of a symbiosis that had existed for millennia before colonization disrupted it. We didn't discover them, he'd written in his final entry. We woke them up with our drilling, and they're hungry for what we took. A branch snapped to Sarah's left, then her right. They were herding her. She broke into a sprint, but the forest had become a maze. Every direction looked identical, every path looping back on itself. The converted were using the terrain, using the infected root system to track her movements underground. She burst into a clearing and froze. 17 people stood in a perfect circle around a massive redwood stump, not moving, not breathing, just waiting. In the center of the circle, something grew from the stump itself, a pulsing mass of organic matter that was neither plant nor animal, covered in eyes that tracked her movement with hungry intelligence.
"You're not my father." Sarah's voice was steady, despite the gun trembling in her hand. "I'm more than your father." He stood, movements fluid, wrong. "I'm what he became when he understood, when he stopped fighting and listened to what the earth was screaming beneath our feet." He gestured to the pulsing mass. "This is the communion, Sarah. The original consciousness that existed before humanity built its first fire. We call it many things, gods, demons, the green man, but it's none of those. It's the planet's immune system, and worthy infection it's finally ready to purge. The 17 converted began moving, closing the circle inch by inch. In 1952, your grandfather led the excavation team. They found it 30 feet down, dormant, crystallized in layers of prehistoric sediment. Military scientists thought it was a mineral deposit, valuable. They extracted samples, transported them to laboratories across the country. 43 sites, each one near a major population center. Sarah's blood went cold. You're saying there are 43 of these things? Were. Most never activated, but Redwood Hill was special. Your grandfather didn't just extract samples, he was exposed. The communion showed him what humanity had done. 7 mass extinctions, billions of years of evolution erased so we could build parking lots and strip malls. He understood that we weren't the dominant species. We were the cancer. So, he decided to help it kill everyone? Not kill. Transform. Integration isn't death, Sarah. It's evolution. Every person who joins the communion retains their consciousness, their memories, but becomes part of something greater. No more war, no more hunger, no more loneliness. Her father's many eyes glistened. Your grandfather spent 40 years preparing the ground, literally. He contaminated the water supply with microscopic spores. By the time you were born, every person in Redwood Hill carried the seeds. Tonight's pulse simply activated what was already growing inside them. Sarah raised the gun. Stay back! You can't shoot me, Sarah. I'm in your blood, too. That's why you're immune to the pulse. You're already one of us. Have been since birth. Why do you think your dreams were always so vivid? Why you could always sense when someone was lying? Those were the communion's gifts, preparing you for tonight. He was right. Sarah had always known things she shouldn't, had always felt connected to something vast and ancient beneath the soil. The film. The photos. If I'm already converted, why did you let me document everything? Her father's smile became something beautiful and terrible. Because we need you to share them. 43 sites, Sarah. 43 communities preparing to harvest. But the world needs to see what comes next. They need to understand this isn't invasion. It's an invitation. And you, the last Mitchell, will be our messenger. Behind her, footsteps. Jerry Sullivan, the radio operator, emerged from the trees. His eyes were already changing. Sorry, Sarah, Jerry said with that clicking undertone. I've been waiting for you. The radio tower is ready. Time to show the world what evolution really looks like.
Sarah's mind raced through her options. The gun was useless. Even if she fired every bullet, the communion had already won. Jerry controlled the only radio tower for 50 miles. The photos and flash drive in her jacket meant nothing if there was no one left to send them to. Unless... You're right, Sarah said slowly, lowering the weapon. I can feel it. The connection. It's been there my whole life, hasn't it? Whispering in my dreams. Showing me things. Her father's expression softened. Finally, I've waited so long to hear you understand. But I need to know everything before I accept. The broadcast, what exactly will it show? The transformation,
live footage of the integration process. Humanity will see that there's no pain, no loss, only transcendence. Within hours, the other 42 sites will activate. Within days, every major city will have its own communion node. Within a month, the entire species converted, Sarah finished. She took a step toward the pulsing mass. The 17 converted parted, allowing her passage. And those who resist? There is no resistance, Jerry said, emerging fully into the clearing. Not once they understand. The communion doesn't force, it offers. Shows you everything you've lost, everything humanity has sacrificed in its blind pursuit of dominance. Your loneliness, your fear, your certainty that something is fundamentally wrong with the world. All of it ends. Sarah reached the central mass. Up close, it was beautiful, terrible and beautiful. Each eye held an entire ecosystem of consciousness. She could feel millions of thoughts, millions of lives, all connected in perfect harmony. The photos, she said. My father mentioned them. You want the world to see the process, but these photos show monsters, creatures. That won't convince anyone. The early stages appear frightening, her father admitted, but by morning, the transformed will look human again, perfected. We simply need documentation of the full cycle. Then let me document the final stage. Let me photograph the completed transformation. That's what will convince them. Sarah pulled out the film camera. One photo of you, Father, fully integrated, beautiful. That's the image that needs to broadcast worldwide. Her father considered this. The communion considered this. Through him, through Jerry, through the 17 converted, through the infected trees themselves, a vast intelligence weighing her words. Yes, he finally said, show them what we've become. Sarah raised the camera, focused. In the viewfinder, she saw her father surrounded by that bioluminescent glow, his many eyes reflecting something ancient and inhuman. Behind him, the mass pulsed with satisfied hunger. She pressed the shutter. The flash was ordinary. The chemical compound Marcus had added to it was not. The photographer's flashbulb contained magnesium, but Marcus had modified them, had been modifying them for weeks, ever since he discovered the communion's one weakness in old Project Shepherd files. Concentrated UV radiation disrupted the spore's cellular structure. The modified flash exploded with light, equivalent to midday sun, amplified by the camera's focusing lens. Her father's scream wasn't human. Neither was the sound from Jerry, from the 17 converted, from the trees themselves. The communion's connection shattered like glass, each node suddenly isolated, suddenly dying. Sarah ran as the forest burned with bioluminescent fire, every infected cell cooking from within. She had maybe 3 minutes before the communion adapted, before it learned from this mistake. 3 minutes to reach Jerry's radio tower and broadcast a very different message. Behind her, something that used to be her father howled with 43 voices, all of them promising she couldn't run far enough. Sarah's lungs burned as she crashed through the undergrowth. Behind her, the forest had become a nightmare of thrashing limbs and howling voices. The UV flash had bought her time, but not much. She could already feel the communion adapting, healing, reconnecting through the deeper root systems that her attack hadn't reached. Jerry's radio tower emerged through the trees, a rusted lattice structure climbing 200 feet into the night sky. The access shed sat at its base, door hanging open. Sarah burst inside, slamming it shut behind her. The radio equipment was ancient but functional. Marcus's flash drive contained everything: the security footage, aerial photos of all 43 sites, classified documents proving government knowledge of the communion since 1952, and audio recordings of the scientists who'd first discovered it, including her grandfather's confession. Sarah's hands shook as she loaded the files. The broadcast would reach emergency frequencies across 3 states, military channels, news stations. Anyone listening would know the truth, would know that 43 communities were preparing for simultaneous harvest, would know how to fight back. UV light, fire, disrupting the root networks before they fully matured. She pressed record. This is Sarah Mitchell in Redwood Hill, California. If you're receiving this transmission, you need to listen carefully. What I'm about to show you... The door exploded inward. Her father stood in the entrance, body twisted and wrong, eyes blazing with bioluminescent fury. But he wasn't attacking. He was... crying? Thick, glowing tears streamed down his distorted face. "Sarah, please." His voice was his own again, just for a moment. Underneath the clicking, I heard the man who taught me to ride a bike. "You don't understand what you're doing. The communion..." It showed me everything. The future. Humanity doesn't survive the next century without this. Climate collapse, resource wars, nuclear winter. We've already killed the planet. This is our only chance at redemption, to become something that works with nature instead of against it. Sarah's finger hovered over the broadcast button. By erasing everything that makes us human, by saving what matters, every converted person is still themselves, Sarah, still conscious, still capable of love and art and wonder, but without the hatred, without the greed. Your mother, I've seen her in the communion. She's at peace. No more cancer, no more pain. She's waiting for you. Sarah's mother had died 3 years ago. The loss had nearly destroyed her. She's alive in the network. All of them are. The 17 in the forest, they're not gone. They're transcendent. And the world, imagine Earth healing, forests regrowing, oceans cleaning themselves. The communion doesn't destroy, it restores. We're the virus, Sarah. This is the cure. For a moment, just a moment, Sarah saw it. Saw the vision her father was offering. A world without suffering, without the slow death spiral humanity had locked itself into. She'd spent her career documenting small-town corruption and environmental destruction, had watched her mother waste away because they couldn't afford treatment, had seen good people ground down by a system designed to extract rather than nurture. What if he was right? What if the communion really was salvation? Her finger moved toward the power switch instead of the broadcast button. Then she saw it. Through the window, the 17 converted from the forest emerging into the clearing. They moved with that same synchronized precision, but now they carried something. Bodies. Fresh ones. People who tried to flee Redwood Hill in those first minutes. Converted, yes, but they'd been caught, hunted down. The communion offered choice, her father said, but these people didn't choose. They were taken. His face flickered. Human, then not, then human again. They would have chosen eventually. We simply accelerated the process for the greater good. For the greater good. The same words used to justify every atrocity in human history. Sarah pressed broadcast. This is Sarah Mitchell in Redwood Hill, California. If you're receiving this transmission, you need to listen carefully. What I'm about to show you...
The transmission lasted 7 minutes before they cut the power. 7 minutes of footage showing the converted, the mining facility, the pulsing communion mass, and Marcus's technical analysis of the spore's vulnerability to UV radiation. 7 minutes broadcast across emergency frequencies to military bases, news stations, and ham radio operators throughout California, Oregon, and Nevada. 7 minutes that changed everything. Sarah watched through the tower's window as her father collapsed, clutching his head. All 43 communion nodes had felt the broadcast, felt their secret exposed, felt the coordinated response beginning, military convoys mobilizing, UV floodlights being manufactured, evacuation protocols activating for towns near the other sites. "What have you done?" Her father's voice fractured into dozens of overlapping tones. "We offered peace. We offered salvation." And you chose war. You took away choice. That's not salvation. It's slavery. And what is your alternative? He struggled to his feet, body convulsing as the communion's collective consciousness fought to maintain control. You have seen the world, the climate crisis, the political collapse, the mass extinctions. Humanity is already dying. We simply offered a death with meaning, a transformation into something that could survive what's coming. Sarah's radio crackled to life. Military frequencies. This is Colonel Martinez, Fort Bragg Emergency Response. We've received your transmission and are deploying UV suppression teams to all known sites. Ms. Mitchell, if you can hear this, we need detailed coordinates for the mining facility and any underground network access points. She grabbed the microphone. The facility entrance is at coordinates 41.2853 degrees north, 122.8076 degrees west. But Colonel, the route network extends for miles. The spores are in the water supply. Every person in Redwood Hill is infected. Understood. We're implementing containment protocol. No one leaves the affected area. We'll establish a perimeter and... Static. Then silence. Sarah looked at her father. His smile was terrible. Did you really think you were the first to try warning them? The government has known about the communion for 70 years. They have had protocols in place since 1952. Containment, suppression, sterilization. His many eyes gleamed. Your grandfather tried to expose it. Your father tried to stop it. Both failed, because the government doesn't want to stop the communion, Sarah. They want to control it. That's impossible. Project Shepherd wasn't about studying the communion. It was about weaponizing it, creating a biological tool for complete population control. Why do you think they abandoned these sites instead of destroying them? They were waiting to see which nodes would activate naturally, selecting the strongest variants for military application. The radio came back online. Different voice. Cold. Clinical. Ms. Mitchell, this is Director Vance, Department of Defense Special Projects. Your transmission has been intercepted and contained. All recipients have received a classified directive to disregard your transmission as a psychological warfare exercise. The military response you just heard? Theater, to make you believe help was coming. Sarah's blood went cold. You have two options, Director Vance continued. Option 1, you remain in Redwood Hill. The site will be sterilized at dawn using white phosphorus ordnance, complete incineration. No survivors, no evidence. Another tragic wildfire in California's record books. And option 2, you deliver the communion to us willingly. Allow us to study your unique immunity, your family's genetic connection to the nodes. In exchange, we extract you before sterilization, protection, new identity, a life. Her father laughed, that wet, clicking sound. They're offering you the same deal they offered me 10 years ago. I refused, so they killed my body and let the communion preserve what mattered. But you, Sarah, you're still alive, still human, still capable of making the choice I couldn't. Outside, helicopters approached. Not military markings, black, unmarked, moving with predatory precision. Sarah counted 6, each carrying cargo too large for personnel. Those aren't extraction teams, her father whispered. They're carrying dispersal units. The government isn't here to contain the communion. They're here to harvest it, to package it, to deploy it wherever they need absolute control. The pieces fell into place. This was never about stopping an invasion. It was about capturing a weapon. And Sarah held the only evidence that could prove it. The helicopters circled closer. Her father extended a hand. Too many fingers, too many joints, but somehow still familiar. We can run, he said. Into the deep forest, where the root network is strongest. They can't burn what they can't find. The communion can hide us, protect us, until we're ready to try again. Sarah looked at the radio equipment. at the flash drive containing all of Marcus's research, at her father's outstretched hand, at the choice that would determine everything.
Sarah looked at her father's hand, at the helicopters descending, at the radio equipment still warm from transmission. And she made her choice. "There's a third option," she said quietly, ejecting the flash drive and pocketing it. "One neither of you considered." She grabbed a flare from the emergency kit, struck it, and tossed it into the radio equipment. Sparks erupted, plastic melting, circuits frying. The tower's fuel generator ignited with a roar. "Sarah, no!" Her father lunged forward, but the UV-modified flash had weakened him. The communion's connection was still fragmented, still healing. "You wanted a messenger," Sarah said, backing toward the window. "So I'll be one. But I'll tell the truth, all of it. Not your version, not theirs." She grabbed Marcus's gun from her jacket. 5 bullets left. "The world needs to know that both of you are the enemy. The communion that steals choice, the government that weaponizes nightmares. Both of you trading humanity like resources to be harvested or controlled." Director Vance's voice crackled from the dying radio. "You're making a fatal mistake, Miss Mitchell. Where will you run? We'll find you. We always do." "Maybe." Sarah smashed the window, the night air rushing in. The helicopters banked hard, searchlights lancing through the darkness. She could see armed figures rappelling down, moving with military precision. Her father's voice was broken, human again. "Sarah, please. The deep forest, the communion can hide you, keep you safe. You don't have to be alone." She met his eyes. So many eyes, but somewhere in there, still her father. "I know. That's what makes this hard." Sarah fired 3 shots into the generator. The explosion was immediate and catastrophic. Flames engulfed the tower's base, racing up the structure. The radio equipment melted into slag, all evidence of tonight's transmission consumed. Except for the flash drive in her pocket and the 23 photos in her camera, and the memories burned into her mind. She jumped through the window as the tower began to collapse. Landed hard in the undergrowth, rolled, kept moving. Behind her, the helicopters diverted to the fire, their mission suddenly complicated by flames and falling debris. Her father didn't follow. The UV flash, the fire, the communion's fragmented state, he was too weak. She heard him calling her name one last time before the tower's collapse drowned everything in thunder and ash. Sarah ran into the deep forest, but not where the communion wanted her to go. She'd grown up in these woods, new paths the infected root system hadn't reached, new caves where UV light reflected from quartz deposits, knew how to survive. 3 days later, she emerged 12 miles south of Redwood Hill, disheveled, exhausted, but alive. The town behind her was a smoking crater. The government had made good on their promise. White phosphorus, complete sterilization. The official story blamed a gas line explosion. But Sarah had the flash drive, had the photos, had Marcus's research, and she knew what no one else knew. The remaining 42 sites were still active, still growing, still preparing. The government was harvesting some for weapons research. The communion was adapting, learning from Redwood Hill's failure. And the clock was ticking. 6 months later, the first leak appeared online. Classified documents, blurry photos, audio recordings of scientists discussing Project Shepherd. No mainstream outlet would touch it. Too dangerous, too unbelievable. But the internet remembered. People investigated, asked questions, connected dots. More sites activated. Portland, Sacramento, Spokane. Each one contained faster, burned cleaner. The government getting better at cover-ups, the communion getting better at hiding. And Sarah Mitchell, living under a new name in a new city, kept documenting, kept broadcasting, kept fighting a war that most people didn't know existed. Because she'd learned something in Redwood Hill that neither the communion nor the government understood. Humanity's greatest weakness was also its greatest strength. We were messy, contradictory, capable of both tremendous cruelty and breathtaking compassion. We made terrible choices and beautiful art. We destroyed and created in equal measure. We were imperfect, chaotic, beautifully, terrifyingly free. And that freedom, that magnificent disaster of consciousness and choice, was worth protecting. Even if it meant fighting monsters that promised peace and governments that promised security. Even if it meant standing alone against forces that should have been impossible to resist. In her apartment, Sarah developed the final photograph from Redwood Hill. It showed her father in the moment before the transformation completed. Human and other. Himself and not himself. Choosing and chosen. She pinned it to her wall next to the others. Evidence, reminder, warning. Her phone buzzed. Anonymous message. Coordinates. Another town. Another site activating. Sarah grabbed her camera, loaded with Marcus's modified UV flash, and headed for the door. The harvest was spreading, but so was the resistance. The end. Or is it?